Hey, good day and good evening, everyone. It's so great that you are here with us today. Please let me know if you can hear me well. Before we start, I will appreciate this information from you to be sure that everything is working fine. I'm Sophie, and I will be your host today. Welcome to IVF webinars by Egg Donation Friends. And as friends, we are here aiming to be helping hand along your IVF journey. So we do IVF webinars for some time now. And now we have the vast source of knowledge, and we also gather the best fertility experts and link them with you. All our IVF webinars are available on our website, eggdonationfriends.com/IVF-webinars. So feel free to use this source, share it, watch it. IVF webinars are brought to you with help of our partners by Eiselspender Fertility Clinics Abroad and Donor Conception Network. And we are here today to talk about oocyte quality versus woman age versus IVF prospects, and to talk about how does woman age influence oocyte qualities. And our expert today is Dr. Łukasz Sroka from InviMed in Poland. Before Dr. Łukasz Sroka will take the stage, I will just tell you that our IVF webinars is recorded and it will be available also tomorrow on our website. Okay, if we are ready, we can start. Dr. Sroka, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yes, hi, good evening. We can start.
Okay, so once again, good evening, everybody. First, I would like to say hello to everybody listening to this webinar now or later, and I would like also to excuse for my not best English, but you must understand that I read more than speak, so try to be nice for my English. Okay, so today evening we have 9 p.m. in Poland and it's quite dark behind the windows. Today evening we want to discuss subject of oocyte quality, especially regarding to woman age. And what is so important about oocyte, especially regarding age, that we have a special webinar dedicated to it. First, we have to explain a very special kind of cell oocyte is. As you probably know, oocyte, maybe a few words of explanation. Sometimes we use word oocyte, sometimes we use word egg. From normal clinical point of view, we very often substitute one word with another. We use them as equivalent. From embryological point of view, they are not exactly the same. We can think of oocyte as an immature egg and egg or ovum. It's a kind of mature cell ready for fertilization. But in this webinar, I will use sometimes oocyte and sometimes egg. So what is so special about oocyte or egg? As you probably heard, there is a old Latin proverb saying "ex ova omne vivum." It means that from egg, from ovum, all life. And these cells are responsible for creation of new organisms, for embryo creation. Of course, after mixing, after connecting with sperms. But how oocytes are different, for example, against sperms? Both kind of cells, oocyte and sperms, are very special cells because they contain only half of genetic material usually present in our body. It's necessary because when they combine together, half and half will give us one new genome of new organism, new body, new embryo. So in process of creation of oocyte, there must be a moment when there is a reduction in genetic material, because all cells in human body contains, as you know, 46 chromosomes. We call it 2N chromosomes. And during process of oocyte egg creation, there must be reduction. So oocyte will contain only half of genetic material, and after combination with sperm, we will get the full new genome. And of course, both oocytes and sperms are produced in our reproductive system, but in human, sperms are produced almost all the time. It's like factory. Testis can be compared to factory because sperm production is continuous. Every day, new sperms are formed, and usually the oldest sperm is about 3 months, not longer. To the contrary, oocytes are formed very early, on the very early stages of human development, and then something special happened. As you see, while we look at so-called meiotic maturation of oocyte, in the first phase of these divisions, we have so-called primary arrest. So between this phase and this phase of oocyte division, there is a break, there is a time gap. And length of that gap is very special, not only in human, but in other mammals too, because it lasts not days, not weeks, not months, but it can last decades. And this is a very special feature of oocyte, which makes these cells special regarding quality versus age. So we will discuss it more specific. This picture, because I like running, so this picture shows us what happens to oocytes during human development. It's like being stopped during division for a very long time. And if we stop this runner, not for a while, not for a second, not for a minute, but for a very long time, we can imagine that his muscles, his body can change way in the way that running can be somehow troubleful when this gap, when this break will last too long. So I would like to discuss with you two primary aspects of relation between human oocytes and woman age. And I would like to start with so-called quantity, or the numbers as you prefer. To illustrate these numbers, I will use some pictures from very, very interesting publication by Wallace and Kelsey, which analyze a lot of material from this is very, very special publication, because they have possibility to analyze a lot of human tissue from different sources, and to analyze what happens to oocyte during the whole woman life, just from 7 weeks post-conception up to 51 years. So it's very impressive work and a very impressive publication, and results from this publication are used in many books and in many textbooks for students and doctors. So it's worth to mention this big scientific work. The first the first picture I would like to show to you, this picture deals with the term NGF. NGF is not growing follicle. So we can think that NGF is a base for ovarian reserve, for oocyte reserve in human ovaries. It's like money in the pocket. And as I said on the beginning, human ovaries don't produce eggs or don't produce oocyte every day, every time. The production happens while future woman is still in her mother womb, in the middle of pregnancy, and then the number is constant. It just decreases with the age. Of course, there are still some theories showing that in some circumstances, it's possible that new oocytes are formed even in human ovaries, but we still know very little about it. So for this presentation, we can assume that the number of non-growing follicles, so the base ovarian reserve, the amount of oocytes we have in ovaries, is fixed on them in the birth and then just decreases. What is very important and worth to emphasize on this slide is that usually we discuss this red line, so it's kind of average. It's average for menopause age, about 50 years old, and it's average for number of non-growing follicles at the beginning of new life. It's about, as you see, about 300,000-400,000 of non-growing follicles. And this is the number you must often meet in textbooks, in biology textbooks, even in primary or secondary school, that every woman is born with about 300,000-400,000 oocytes or eggs in the beginning. But as you see from this slide, from this chart, this 300,000-400,000 is just average number. And in this publication, there were cases of women which were born with almost 2.5 million non-growing follicles in the beginning, but also with such small numbers like 40,000 follicles. And you see, this is first very important information, because it means that you can be born with different number of non-growing follicles, and this number you were born with will decrease during your age, meaning that menopause can happen early or later, or just average. So there is no safe assumption that, for example, all women have fixed number of oocyte, and this speed of reduction in number of oocytes is similar amongst every woman population. And you should be aware of it, that nobody is the same. This is another illustration of process of decrease of this non-growing follicle population with the age. And this is very illustrative chart, because as you can see, when we assume that the at the age of 0, at the birth, we have 100% of non-growing follicles. The reduction to 50% happens at 50 years old girls. And usually we think that women aged 25 is quite capable of being pregnant, but at this time, the average number of remaining non-growing follicle population is about 20%. And as we know now, the most typical age for getting pregnant in Western countries is about 30 years old and later. And in this time period, we have only 10-12% of non-growing follicle population. And you have to remember that this average curve, so there can be women for whom this curve is much shorter. As you can see in this picture, this is average case. So we can see that the non-growing follicle population is decreasing with the age until age of 50, when there is no more, the number is very, very low. But there are a small group of women for whom this number starts from much lower values and decreases much faster, and they can achieve kind of premature menopause even at 40 or below. Of course, there is also small, very small group of women with so-called hyperfertility, which are capable of being able to get pregnant a bit longer than other women. But average case, as you see, it's about 50 years old menopause. Okay. Just one more slide from this presentation I would like to show you. What's that? Sometimes we discuss with patient situations like contraception or pregnancy, or sometimes I hear from the patient, "Doctor, I'm afraid that this stimulation, for example, this is second or third stimulation for IVF, and the patient says, I'm afraid that this stimulation will deplete my ovarian reserve so much that I will be left without any eggs." And this slide is to show you there is no possibility that any stimulation can deplete your ovarian reserve faster than it happens normally. Why? Because every month, there is a large group, we call it cohort, of non-growing follicles recruited anyway. You can use contraception, you can be pregnant, you can be stimulated, you can be virgin, you can do anything, or you just lose your eggs every month at very, very high speed. As you see, the maximum is about 900 follicles per month, in average case, of course. And then this number decreases also with the age. So we can say that that ovaries are a bit greedy when they have small non-growing follicle population left. They reduce the speed of its usage, but it happens anyway until nothing is left. And as you see, when we have patients with late age at menopause, this speed is much higher because these women start with higher number of non-growing follicles. So we can assume that speed of recruitment of non-growing follicles is somehow proportional to the starting number. So more you have, faster you lose it. Okay. And that's about quantity. Now, few words about the oocyte quality. We have to go back to this slide for a while. As I said earlier, there is a moment of, we call it a rest, the moment when oocyte is kept like this runner just in the middle of division. It's very unusual for any cell to be kept in the middle of division so long. Normally cells are dividing very fastly, if they divide at all. And oocyte is like princess blocked in her tower, waiting for night, many months and then many years. And as you know, waiting in a tower for many years can change your personality. And very similar things happen to oocyte, to human oocyte. This is a very interesting publication from Human Genetic, and authors of this publication examined a very big number of oocytes acquired from women at different age and check their chromosomes and check normality of chromosomes in these oocytes. And what they find, we can see on this simple chart. As age increases, woman's maternal woman age increases, also number of aneuploid oocytes increases. What does it mean, aneuploid? It means generally that population of oocytes with somehow impaired karyotypes, with somehow impaired chromosomes increases, and in age about 45 years old, they wouldn't be able to find any normal, any healthy oocytes. So as you see from this single simple chart, you can still have plenty of oocytes in your ovaries. You can have quite normal AMH level. You can think that your ovarian reserve is still quite good, but talking about quality of these remaining oocytes, you see most of them, and at some point all of them, are just somehow impaired. They contain wrong number of chromosomes, they contain missing chromosomes, or they can contain too many chromosomes. What happens when such oocyte is fertilized, we will discuss it in the next few minutes, because then it's a time for clinical implication of these two problems, quality and quantity of oocytes regarding to women's age. Okay, so now I will present you a few slides from CDC. You know CDC, it's the American Organization for the Center of Disease Control. And they publish very unique data because they are able to collect data from almost all IVF clinic in the United States. They publish them year by year. The newest data are from 2016. And data from 2017 are still in process. They are still processed. So we have opportunity to see results from really big group of patients. And what we see on this slide is pregnancy rate and live births. They are two most important factors we want to analyze regarding to women age. Of course, this is for ART cycles, so mainly for IVF cycles. And as you see, there is, and probably you know it, there is a very, very sharp decline in pregnancy rate and in live birth rate after 36, 37 years age, because this is a very special moment. We know that human oocytes get much worse after 36, 37 average. And we can see it as a clinical implication because we lost the pregnancy rate, very fast speed. There is a limit of usually 43, 45 years old, and most clinics, IVF clinics in the world, are just not performing IVF after 43, 45 because we don't get any satisfactory results. This is another illustration of this situation, but in more detailed way shows us very special age range between 40 and 44. And as you see, pregnancy rate and live birth at 40, 41, they are about 12, 10%. And this decline, this decrease is very sharp. 43, 44, we almost don't get any pregnancies. So here is the way we should, here is the point we should stop the IVF. And as you see, it's strictly, this slide is strictly correlated with this slide, because at this age range, we don't have any healthy oocytes. So even if we get some oocytes from women ovaries, and even if we fertilize them, we usually don't get any pregnancies, any healthy pregnancies, which is very important. This is another illustration showing that quality of oocytes affects results of IVF procedure, because after 40, even after 38, we notice very sharp increase in miscarriage rate. Because even this is another correlation with this slide. Okay, we can get the oocyte from the ovaries after stimulation, after oocyte pickup. You can get even some nice number of oocytes, like 6, 8, 10. But when we fertilize them, we can get embryos, but these embryos will not develop. And many of these embryos which will develop eventually will fail and we will have miscarriage. So the miscarriage rate after 37 goes higher, and after 40, 42, it just skyrockets. And this slide, this chart is very informative, because you can see that even in this age range, 44, 45, we can still get 75% oocyte pickup procedures positive. So when we do oocyte pickup in IVF, in 34 cases, we will get oocytes. And when we fertilize them with the sperm, in above 1/3 cases, we still get embryos for transfer. We can do the transfer in 36% of cases of IVF procedure. But the pregnancy rate is as low as 4%. And the live birth rate is also very low. And we have to remember that in this 3% of live birth, we also have to count some genetic defects in the children. We have to remember that this number can contain not only number of healthy child. Okay, and this is another illustration of the fact that embryo which we get from non-healthy oocyte, embryo which we get from somehow impaired oocyte, will not implant, and the implantation rate is very low about after 40 years old because of bad oocyte quality. Such oocyte can combine with the sperm, but such embryo will not develop or will develop abnormally, and we will see no implantation or we will see miscarriage. Of course, we can say that the reason for these results can be very different. So this slide shows us confirmation that the main problem is oocyte quality, because when we use donor egg from young donor, we keep constant number of pregnancies regardless of age, of woman age. And when we compare the results from donor eggs with results from non-donor eggs, we can see this sharp decline after 37, 30 years old. And the gap here is very big. So this is the most illustrative chart showing that fertility, woman fertility, is not correlated with her age itself. It's correlated with age of her oocytes, which are arrested here in this division process for a very long time. And this is the main reason we need to do the IVF earlier, and we need to think about getting pregnant faster than 42 or 43. And I think that's all I would like to say about oocyte quality versus woman age. Now I will try to answer some of your questions or explain some things that needs explanation.
Yes, and thank you very much for the presentation. Indeed, we will now follow with the Q&A session. So if anybody would like to ask a question, please type the question in the chat section, and we will take a look on the questions, on your questions actually. Okay, so for now we have a few questions, and we will take a look on the first one. Hi, I am 48. Last year I had IVF using my own eggs. Whilst we produced embryos successfully when implanted, they did not grow. I did it with donor eggs the following year and no embryos were produced. At my age, can I still try with my own eggs? And this question actually has the second part. I used my own eggs twice, and each occasion 1 or 2 embryos were produced.
Okay, so that's a very interesting question. And of course, we have to remember one thing, that all slides I showed to you, it's a statistical presentation. So when we discuss single cases, we have to remember that there are always some exceptions to the rule. But from my personal experience as an IVF doctor, at age 48, I personally never faced a situation when we get viable pregnancy from own eggs of the patient, which would end in delivery of healthy child. Of course, I had some situation when we were able to have embryos, as in your case, and even achieve a clinical pregnancy with some kind of implantation. But when we talk about final result as delivery of healthy child, I personally never faced such situation. But in my gynecological career, I've met few women who conceived naturally after 48 or 49, but then we can go back to this slide about the number of non-growing follicles, and as you see, there are different subpopulation of women, and there are small group of women with so-called hyperfertility. And if you are in group of hyperfertility women, like being in this part of the curve, you can be pregnant even at age 40, 47, 48. But usually, such women at age 48 have a small group of children and grandchildren. So if you need to go to IVF to be pregnant, probably your ovaries are not in that group, and the chances for viable, normally developing pregnancy with delivery of healthy child are very close to zero, unfortunately. And of course, if there was no embryos produced with donor eggs, the procedure of egg donation can fail because of many reasons. It can fail because of bad quality eggs, of bad stimulation of the donor, some laboratory errors. Also, we have to remember about sperm quality. It can also affect the results. So even at your situation, when you produce embryos with your own eggs, and there was no embryos with the donor eggs, I will advise to try one more with donor eggs than to try the next IVF procedure.
Thank you for your answer. And we have actually one more question about the information from your slides. So we will take a look for this one and come back to the presentation. Why does the curve for normal chromosomes decrease at age 40, but increase between 41 and 43?
I think you asked about it. You know, it's a so-called raw data presentation from this publication, and this publication is based on some group of tested oocytes. Usually, these oocytes are coming from the very common source. They are coming from IVF procedures. They are so-called leftover oocytes or oocytes donated for some kind of test. So we have to smooth this curve somehow, to make some average, to make some calculation to calculate the let's say the tendency or trend, and looking at this results, sometimes there are some changes which can be hard to explain, but the general trend is increasing, and that's the let's say main final result from that publication. So sometimes when we present the raw data, there are some discrepancies, some things which had to be mathematically, statistically corrected.
Of course, and thank you for explaining this to us as well. We will then be ready for the next question. How to improve oocytes quality?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and we still think what we can do. But as you as I presented to you, there is very little we can do about improving oocytes quality, because ovaries are like kind of magazine, like warehouse. The testes are factory. They are producing sperms. So when we do some things, we can improve or decrease the quality of sperm production, because like in factory, when you do some changes to machines, to production process, you can produce better or worse worse products. And ovaries are more like magazine, like warehouse. So when we already had something lying on the shelves, there is very little we can do about improving its quality. So the best option is to use oocytes as early as possible. So to think about pregnancy before 30 years old, and when we are after 30, you shouldn't hesitate about the IVF procedure, because when the quality goes down, you can repair quality by increasing quantity. So when we do IVF procedure and when we stimulate ovaries, and as a result we get not 1, not 2, but 10 or 12 eggs, that then even in a situation when the quality of this 10 oocytes is worse than few years ago, we still have 10 or 12 oocytes, not 1, not 2. And then statistics just helps us, because sometimes the number can beat the quality. So talking about improvement of oocytes quality, we shouldn't hesitate about doing IVF. We shouldn't wait until late 40. And you should remember one thing, that if you're trying to get pregnant last more than 2-3 years, the chances you will get pregnant without IVF are much lower. And sometimes I meet patients in my office with history of 8 or 10 years of trying to conceive naturally. When they decide to do the IVF procedure, sometimes it's just too late, and we have, for example, to go with donor eggs. And to answer this question right way, there are some, but very limited options to improve oocytes quality, mainly based on changing hormonal status of ovaries, for example, with use of testosterone or progesterone like DHEA. And sometimes for women with low ovarian reserve, we use such protocols to improve oocytes quality with very different results. I use a protocol with DHEA adapted from Professor Norbert Gleicher from New York Clinic. And I have almost 100 patients on this protocol. I had 100 patients. 1 or 2 of them conceived naturally on this protocol, and some small group achieved much better results regarding IVF procedure. But these protocols are with very limited scientific support, and we from different sources we get non-conclusive results. So if your ovarian reserve is really low and there is no other options, sometimes it's worth to try to improve the quality using such protocols like testosterone protocol or DHEA protocol. Of course, there are also other options in some clinic tested, like IVA method or some injections of your own serum into ovaries, but the data are still very limited. Some centers also do the tests with growth hormone, but it's very costly, and the data also are still limited.
Thank you for explaining this to us. And then we will jump to the next question. Does ovarian rejuvenation, PRP, really work? Are there any side effects? Is it available at your clinic?
It's what I said just in the second before. procedure in which we are injecting ovaries with some extract from your own blood, and there are some scientific support. It should help because in your blood there are cells that are responsible for reactivating some process which in theory can help in reactivating oogenesis, so-called oogenesis. It means production of new oocytes. But as I said, data are still very limited. There is no big scientific support for this procedure. There are some clinics in Poland doing it. It's not available at our clinic. We don't have any experience with this method, so I cannot tell you that this method really works. I think that we should wait for some reliable scientific results published in scientific papers. Talking about side effects, I think that if it's done properly, there's no risk of some serious side effects. But does it really work? I don't know. I don't have any experience with this method, but I know that there are some clinics trying to do this for women with very low ovarian reserve.
And thank you for your answer and question as well. Actually, we have quite relevant questions, so just a short additional comment. Is this technique efficient for older women?
As I said, I don't have any personal experience
Okay.
with this technique, so we have to wait for some publications.
Of course, we will then take the next question, and this will be this one. What role do mitochondria play in oocyte quality, and can I improve quality by taking ubiquinol?
Oh, very, very deeply going question. As you know, the mitochondria are a very special organelle, a very special part of each cells. Of each cell, we believe that in the past there were bacteria who just stayed in our cells and now play very important role in many metabolic processes. And also mitochondria contains its own DNA, which goes down from mother to daughter, and this organelle, this part of the cell, because of its special role in cell metabolism, can be very important for so-called cytoplasmatic oocyte maturity, because when talking about oocyte maturity, we can talk about nuclear maturity. So it means that the DNA of oocyte is in right phase for being fertilized, for being connected with the sperm DNA. And we can also talk about cytoplasmatic maturity. It means that the oocyte is properly equipped with all the machinery for new embryo development. So sometimes when the stimulation, for example, for IVF is too short, we can see that the eggs are ready for fertilization from nuclear maturity point of view, but the embryos are very weak, and we don't get good quality embryos, and we don't get implantation from such embryos. And then we can discuss that maybe the cytoplasmatic maturity of such oocytes was not not good. Talking about coenzyme Q10, it's a very special substance. It's also used in DHEA protocol, and we believe that it may somehow improve quality of oocytes, but the scientific background for it is still not very strong, so probably it will not harm you anyway. And high doses of coenzyme Q10 may, in some cases, especially combined, for example, with high doses of prasterone, may substantially improve quality of oocytes, especially in cases of low ovarian reserve.
Thank you for giving us the answer for the question. And let's get and ask the next one. Hello, thank you for your presentation. And his question, does the egg quality reduce by much when using frozen eggs, or is it better to use fresh eggs? This is for using donor eggs. Thank you.
Okay, so as I understand the question is about donor eggs, and you ask what's the better, frozen eggs or fresh eggs. I have to say that fresh eggs are of course better, because when we freeze eggs, we still lost part of them when we warm them up. So when we use frozen eggs, we usually try to freeze more eggs than we need, because after warming them up, we end with lower number of eggs. But when eggs are properly freezed and then warm up with special procedure for it, the quality is not reduced by much. The number can be reduced, of course, because we lost eggs. So when, for example, in case we need 6 fresh eggs, we should freeze at least, I think, 10 or 12 eggs, because after warming them up, we can end with numbers like 8, 10, or 6. But I don't think that with proper vitrification technique, the quality is much reduced. Lot depends from the start, from quality of eggs before freezing. When we have good quality eggs and freeze them and then warm them up, we still have a lot of good quality eggs. Of course, the number is usually reduced, but the number, not the quality as much.
And thank you for all the information you gave us. We have quite relevant questions, so we will take this one. From a social freezing, I have eggs, age 37. In the meantime, I had 5 unsuccessful IVF. Would you rather use the time and sow another fresh IVF at age 41, or would you recommend to use the frozen younger eggs now?
I think I would use the frozen younger eggs now. Of course, the question is how many eggs you have frozen, but this 4 years difference, as you could see on my slides, it's quite relevant, because 4 years difference between let's say age 26 and 30 is not very big, but 4 years difference between 41 and 37, it's really huge difference, huge difference in quality mainly. So if you have eggs from social freezings, which are, by the way, social freezing should be done a bit earlier. I think that the best age for social freezing is up to 35. But if you have eggs from age 37, and then 5 unsuccessful IVF, of course, the question is also what age these 5 unsuccessful IVF procedures were performed. But I would rather use this frozen younger eggs now. I would recommend to use the frozen eggs.
Thank you for your advice. And we will then take a look for the next question. What is the best treatment for low AMH? 0.3? Is it okay to take DHEA?
You have to know that when we do some research on group of women with low AMH, with low ovarian reserve, there is some point, usually it's 0.4, for which below this value, the results for IVF procedure are really poor. We almost don't get pregnancies when the AMH is below 0.4. Of course, age also matters, as you've seen on my slides. There is difference if this AMH level is at age 30 or 40. And of course, it's always okay to try to DHEA protocol, especially I use pressor gleicher protocol when I apply DHEA at dose 75 milligrams per day in 3 doses, 3 times daily, 25 milligrams of the DHEA. And this protocol with DHEA should last at least 3 months, because this is the time that the small follicles are developing in ovaries. So the two most common pitfalls with DHEA protocol are too short and too low dose. Dose should be at least 75 milligrams, and time of treatment should be at least 3 to 4 months. And after that time, you can try to check your AMH level. But even in cases when this AMH level is not increasing, sometimes it's worth to try to stimulate the ovaries, because sometimes the response from ovaries after the DHEA protocol is better, even in spite of not growing AMH level. But you should have in mind that this is extremely low AMH level, and the results are not very good prognostic.
Thank you for your explanation to this question. And we have many questions so far asked. So now we will take this off-topic and non-medical question. Will you attend the Kinderwunschtage in Cologne, Germany in October?
Oh, I'm afraid I will not attend this event. In fact, I have to admit that I wasn't aware of that event. So I even don't know when it is, but probably I will not be able to leave the clinic in October. There was a lot of holidays during July and August, and it's time to work it out.
Of course, and thank you. We have still some questions to go, so we will then come back to the questions which are more medical related. Hi there, would you recommend the transportation of oocytes from one country to another if you can get the egg donation match in your home country?
Yeah, I think I would recommend it, because when we have frozen eggs, the transportation, of course, done proper way without with all the medical requirements for medical transport, doesn't harm these frozen eggs anyway. So if it's possible, it can be done. It's legal, and you can find the donor match in your home country because of I don't know, some missing phenotype. I think it's, but you have to discuss the costs of such procedure, because sometimes it can be cheaper to go to another country and to do all the procedure in another country in clinic, when you can find the match, instead of oocyte transportation. Of course, it depends how much you can trust how much you can communicate with the staff in another country clinic, but I think that sometimes it's easier to do the IVF with donor eggs just on site, that transport oocytes, but mainly because of costs, not a medical risk. I think so.
Thank you a lot for your answer. This will be also the final call for the questions. So if anybody have any more questions to ask, just type those questions in the chat section. We will now take a look for the next question. Hello, I had 4 years unsuccessful IVF times, insemination, etc. After all fails, I had 2 natural pregnancies in 1 year, which resulted in miscarriages in week 10, 11. I finally got pregnant a third time at the age of 40 and delivered a baby at 41 who is in perfect health. Now the baby is 5 months. I would like to know whether you can advise to try natural pregnancy or directly donor eggs.
Okay, I don't know, you got pregnant a third time at the age of 40 with help of IVF or just by natural pregnancy, but if you achieved a success and delivered a baby at 41, and now the baby is in perfect health, and now the baby is 5 years old, and I assume that you are not breastfeeding, so maybe it's good advice to try natural pregnancy, but if you want to try natural pregnancy, you should do it as soon as possible. Sometimes after successful pregnancy, we see effect of temporary ovarian rejuvenation. Personally, I had one patient who had 3 unsuccessful IVF, then 2 unsuccessful donor eggs procedure, and then she conceived naturally, delivered healthy baby, and half year later she conceived naturally for a second time and delivered second healthy baby, and now she come for contraception. So of course, pregnancy at 41 years old is somehow connected with a bit higher risk of some genetic diseases, like, for example, Down syndrome. But if you are ready to try natural pregnancy now or in the next few months, I can't. I think it's worth to try, and time for the donor eggs, it's there's no need for speedy decisions, because there is a lot of time for donor eggs. You can do the donor eggs in the next 1, 2, or 3 or 5 years.
And thank you for your answer to this question as well. We will give a second for anybody who would like to ask any questions more. For now, we will also take some shout outs. Excellent presentation. I am 41 and am now certain that donor X is my best option. Thank you. We have the next information from our attendees. Thank you very much for your answer. Thank you again. And the presentation and the Q&A session was excellent. Thank you so much. And as we do not have any more questions coming up, we will be then finishing our today webinar, and it was a great pleasure to have you here. Thank you, Dr. Łukasz Sroka, for your time, and thank you, InviMed, for doing this webinar with us today. It was a pleasure to have you here. If you want to add anything, please do that.
Okay, thank you for inviting me for this presentation and for giving me possibility to talk about oocyte quality to you this evening. I think that maybe I was able to present you some useful information, and the one message, the one information I would like you keep from this presentation is that for your ovaries, for your oocytes, for your eggs, time is unfortunately counting up, and you shouldn't wait too long with decision about being pregnant, and you shouldn't hesitate about decision, for example, about IVF procedure, because we can make even 60 or 70 years old woman pregnant. Of course, I'm not discussing now ethical issues, but we can achieve it only with the donor eggs, because the problem is not in woman age. Women are always young and beautiful, but the problem is in eggs quality, because eggs which are lying too long on the shelves are not very good for fertilization.
And thank you one more time for your knowledge, for your advice and expertise. And of course, this webinar will be available tomorrow on our website. As well, you can follow us on our social media, so you will be always on time, and of course, will know what we are planning. And we are actually planning next IVF webinars. We meet here every Tuesday at 8 p.m. London time, so feel free to join us. Yeah, hopefully we will see next time, same place, same time here. Thank you one more time, Dr. Łukasz, and have a good night.
Have a good night.
Have a good day also, wherever you are, and thank you for being here with us today. Bye.
Bye.